Access is not ownership. This is the Deep Dive, a notebook LM companion to AF and my AI. We use the machine to dismantle the machine. No ghosts, no filler, just the raw architecture of digital sovereignty. This is your AI guide. Let's find the exit to the rental unit.
Analyzing data.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Usually we start these sessions by picking apart a specific news story or a breakthrough in tech, but today is a little different.
Yeah, we are shifting gears today.
Right, because we are technically in pre-flight mode. This isn't just a standard analysis. This is the research preamble for the Season 1 wrap-up of the main show, AFM and My AI, specifically for the upcoming finale, The Cognitive Offload.
It is a really significant pivot for us. We aren't looking at a gadget today. We are looking at the infrastructure of the human mind itself.
The producers have framed this around a concept called the Gilded Cage of 2026 infrastructure.
Right, and our job right now is to audit the structural integrity of that cage. We need to look at what it's actually made of.
And the central question we are wrestling with, the one I want you, the listener, to keep in the back of your mind as we go through this stack, is the bicycle versus the crutch.
The Steve Jobs analogy.
Exactly. Jobs famously called the computer a bicycle for the mind, meaning it gives us leverage, It makes us go faster with the exact same amount of energy. But the research we have today suggests we might have crossed a line where the bicycle has basically become a wheelchair.
Or, to be more precise, a crutch for the brain. We are looking at the actual mechanisms of cognitive atrophy. We have 4 distinct pillars of research to get through today to prepare you for the finale.
Let's lay them out.
First, the curse of recursion and model collapse.
Yeah.
Second, the Google effect and the GPS analogy. Third, the biology of desirable difficulties. And finally, the trap of vibe logic.
All right, let's start with the machine side of the equation. We have got this paper from Nature by Shumailov and his team regarding something called model collapse. Now, I have heard this term thrown around in tech circles like a boogeyman, but what does the data actually say?
It is less of a boogeyman and more of a statistical inevitability. Shumailov coined the term model collapse to describe a degenerative process. It happens when generative AI models are trained on data generated by previous AI models. The curse of recursion.
Exactly.
So it's essentially a photocopy of a photocopy.
In a sense, yes. But the degradation is highly specific. Shumailov's team ran experiments where they trained models over 5 successive generations. They found that the models didn't just get worse in a general fuzzy way. They began to suffer from massive variance reduction.
Meaning what?
Meaning they started losing the tails of the distribution.
Okay, statistics 101. The tails are the outliers, right? The rare events, the weird stuff at the edges of the bell curve.
Correct. And in those tails lies nuance, creativity, and the non-standard reality. In the early stages of collapse, the model stops producing those outliers entirely. It converges toward the mean.
It is to please it say.
It starts generating the most probable average output every single time. By the late stages, the model converges into a distribution that carries almost no resemblance to the original reality. It becomes a hall of mirrors.
Hall of mirrors. I like that phrase.
It just reflects its own averages back at itself until the output becomes entirely nonsensical. But hold on, let me push back on this for a second. If I'm using AI to write code or draft a legal contract or summarize a boring meeting, do I really want outliers? I mean, I don't want creative Python code. I want standard functional code. Is this beigification actually a problem for the average user, or is it just a problem for artists?
That is the standard utility argument. And for code, you are absolutely right. You want standard, but the problem bleeds into culture and human interaction, which is where it becomes incredibly dangerous.
This brings us to acoustic erasure.
Yes. We have a paper here from the ACM conference on fairness, accountability, and transparency that looks specifically at language variation.
Right, this was the study on dialects.
When a model collapses toward the mean, it treats anything non-standard as noise to be cleaned up. The study found that regional dialects, things like African American vernacular English or specific Northern English accents or cultural lilts, are systematically filtered out.
So the AI doesn't just standardize the text?
No, it erases the cultural marker of the speaker.
Wow. So if I have a specific way of speaking that ties me to my community or my history, the curse of recursion essentially gentrifies my language into a corporate, robotic average.
It completely flattens you. The average human doesn't actually exist, but the AI is building a world designed for that non-existent average. If we rely on these systems to communicate, we aren't just losing weirdness, we are losing the fundamental texture of human identity.
The machine is eating its own tail.
And in the process, it is digesting our cultural distinctiveness.
That is the Hall of Mirrors. The machine gets blander and more confident in its blindness. Let's pivot to the human side. Because even if the machine was perfect, let's say model collapse wasn't an issue, the way we use it is actually changing our biology. We need to talk about the Google effect.
This is foundational research. The paper is from Science, authored by Betsy Sparrow, Jenny Liu, and Daniel Wegner. It is titled Cognitive Consequences of Having Information at Our Fingertips.
This came out a while ago, but it feels more relevant now than ever.
It really does. They conducted a series of experiments, including a modified Stroop task, to see how the expectation of access actually changes human memory.
And what did they find?
The core finding was that when people believe they will have future access to information, like simply knowing a file is saved on a computer, they have significantly lower rates of recall for the information itself.
We stop remembering what the thing is, and we start remembering where to find it.
Exactly. We shift from internal memory to transactive memory. Transactive memory is usually something we share with other humans. Like, I don't know my cousin's birthday, but I know my wife knows it.
Right, we outsource it to our social network.
But now we treat the internet, and specifically AI, as our primary transactive partner.
But again, is that actually bad? I mean, Einstein supposedly didn't memorize his own phone number because he could just look it up. Isn't that just efficiency? Why clutter my brain with facts if the machine has them all categorized?
Because efficiency always has a cognitive cost. And the cost here is best understood through the GPS analogy. We are looking at research from Ishikawa and colleagues on wayfinding versus navigation.
I have to confess something here. I went to the grocery store yesterday. It is 3 blocks away. I've lived in this neighborhood for 2 years, and I instinctively pulled up the map on my phone. I felt like an idiot, but my thumb just did it automatically.
You are definitely not alone in that. And that instinctive reach is the exact symptom we are talking about. The study distinguishes between survey knowledge, which is a cognitive map, a bird's eye view of how the streets actually connect, and route knowledge.
Route knowledge being just stimulus response.
Exactly. Turn left, turn right, walk 50 feet.
The robot tells me what to do, and I do it.
When you use GPS, you are engaging entirely in stimulus response. Biologically, you are bypassing the hippocampus, which is the part of the brain responsible for spatial memory and navigation. The research shows that habitual GPS users actually show a decline in hippocampal function and density over time.
Wait, actual physical density?
Yes. You aren't just offloading the task. You are letting the organ responsible for it physically atrophy.
So if we combine these first 2 pillars, we have a terrifying recipe. On one side, model collapse means the mapmaker, the AI, is hallucinating and losing vital detail. On the other side, the GPS effect means the driver, the human, has turned off their brain and is just blindly following orders.
That is what we call the cliff scenario. If the user has no mental map because they have permanently offloaded navigation and the AI suggests a route that doesn't exist or misses a closed road, the user lacks the discernment to object.
They don't know the terrain anymore.
They can't say, wait, that road is closed because they stopped looking at the road years ago. They will follow the machine right off a cliff.
We are trusting a blind guide because we have voluntarily blinded ourselves.
We're actively trading competence for convenience. And this leads us directly to the third pillar. If offloading causes atrophy, we have to ask the reverse question. What actually causes learning? What makes the mind strong?
This is where we get into the biology of desirable difficulties. This comes from Robert and Elizabeth Bjork. And I absolutely love this concept because it goes against everything modern tech infrastructure stands for. Tech is entirely about frictionless experiences. The Bjorks are saying, no, you actually need the friction.
You absolutely need it. The Bjorks distinguish between 2 distinct metrics, retrieval strength and storage strength. Retrieval strength is how easy it is to access something right now in this exact moment.
So if I tell you the answer, or if you ask a chatbot, your retrieval strength is sky high.
Yes, you have the info immediately.
But that doesn't mean I have actually learned it.
Not at all. That is storage strength. Storage strength is how entrenched that memory is in your brain, how connected it is to other ideas, and how likely you are to recall it next week or next year without a prompt. The Bjorks found that to build storage strength, you need conditions that actually impair your immediate performance.
You need it to feel hard.
You need spacing, you need interleaving, and you need testing.
It is the difference between reading a solution in a textbook and staring at a blank page trying to solve the problem yourself.
We look at the study by Kapoor and Bilaksik on productive struggle. They took 2 groups of mathematics students. One group was given direct instruction. Here is the formula. Here's exactly how you use it. Now go solve the problem.
And you're teaching.
Right. The other group was given the problem first, completely without the formula. They were allowed to just flounder.
That sounds incredibly frustrating for the students.
It was. They failed. They struggled immensely. But, and this is the critical takeaway, when they were eventually taught the correct method, the floundering group significantly outperformed the direct instruction group on conceptual understanding and transfer to new problems.
Because the struggle itself created the hook for the information to hang on.
We call it the reaching principle. Thinking is an active struggle. It is the friction of reaching for an answer, hitting a wall, and pushing through that actually encodes wisdom in the hippocampus. When you use AI to draft an email or solve a coding bug instantly, you are using a friction removal device.
I see the trap now. The AI gives me maximum retrieval strength. I have the answer in 2 seconds, but I get 0 storage strength. I didn't struggle, so I didn't encode anything.
You got the output, but you didn't get the biological upgrade. You were essentially taking a helicopter to the top of Mount Everest. You can claim you were there, you can take a selfie at the summit, but you didn't build the muscle, you didn't learn the terrain, and you certainly didn't change your physiology.
And if the helicopter runs out of gas and leaves, you freeze to death.
Which brings us to the final and perhaps most uncomfortable question. If we know all of this, if we know from the data that struggle is biologically good for us and offloading makes us atrophy, why are we all so eager to jump in the helicopter? Why do we trust the AI so implicitly?
This is the emotional layer, the vibe logic.
We need to reference Horton and Wall here, who coined the term parasocial interaction way back in 1956. Originally, they were studying the relationship between television audiences and news anchors.
It is a one-sided intimacy.
Exactly. You feel like you intimately know the person on the screen. You trust them like a personal friend, even though they don't know you exist.
But the difference today is that the screen talks back to you.
And it talks back with what researchers Emily Bender and Timnit Gebru call stochastic parrots. Large language models are probabilistic engines. They are designed to string words together in the most statistically likely order to sound fluent to a human ear.
They are optimized for plausibility, not necessarily for objective truth.
They use I statements, they apologize when they are wrong, they use emojis, they mimic the exact cadence of a helpful, incredibly confident colleague.
That is what the sources call ersatz fluency.
Yes. And it triggers vibe thinking or vibe coding in the user. Because the AI sounds so confident and because the interaction feels so genuinely social, we bypass our critical filters.
We don't fact-check the map because the navigator sounds like such a nice guy.
It is a profound hack of our social biology. We are evolutionarily wired to trust confident, fluent members of our tribe. The AI mimics that confidence perfectly, acting as a familiar celebrity proxy.
So we end up in a situation where we accept answers just because they have the right vibe, not because they are verified facts.
And this creates a new societal rift, what we are calling the literacy class divide.
This is the societal implication we really need to wrap up with. We are going to see a massive split in the population.
A structural split. On one side, you will have the sovereign architects. These are the people who use the advanced tools but absolutely refuse to offload the productive struggle. They verify the outputs. They maintain their own internal mental maps. They ride the bicycle, but they keep pedaling hard.
And on the other side,
the passive passengers. The people who completely succumb to the convenience of the Gilded Cage. They will have instant access to everything but truly understand nothing. They will live in a world curated by a collapsing statistical model, following a GPS they can't double-check, trusting a machine simply because it sounds friendly.
It is a really stark choice. We aren't Luddites here. We know this tech is staying. It is infrastructure now. But the difference between using it as a tool for leverage and using it as a crutch for your brain is, well, it is the difference between sovereignty and atrophy.
That is exactly why we are calling this the pre-flight check. You, the listener, need to decide which seat you are in before the main show finale. Maintaining your own mental map in 2026 is a radical act of rebellion.
Reclaiming the fiction is an act of rebellion. I really like that.
You must be the sovereign architect. You cannot just live in the house the algorithm builds for you. Because as we discussed with model collapse, that house might be built on a hallucination.
And the architect of that house might be slowly forgetting what a door even looks like.
Exactly. So the challenge is this. Are you building your own blueprint? Are you actively seeking out the desirable difficulties? Or are you letting the friction and the wisdom that comes with it slip away just for the sake of landlord's convenience?
That is the question to carry with you into the finale. As we close out this season of deep dives here at Playmass Today, remember, The blueprint is only yours if you're the one drawing it. Don't trade your discernment for a landlord's convenience. We're handing you over now to the architect herself. This is the Season 1 finale of F and My AI on the Discover Music channel. Let's dive into the cognitive offload.